We are born, in His name we live, and in His name we die. Here and there, our souls prostrate to their Creator with humbleness and piety, and creatures do dhikr all the time, here and there. La 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 la, la 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 la.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear viewers, joining us on our live program here and there. And inshallah, I'd like to welcome you all. Dear viewers, we're bringing to you an exclusive program, bringing you live discussions every single day of the week up until the end of Ramadan. I'd like to begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this golden opportunity to speak about His deen, for giving us the opportunity to enter into the month of Ramadan. Furthermore, I'd also like to make mention of the blessed name of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and send our prayers and our blessings upon his family and upon all of his companions. Dear viewers, it's very important for us to understand when we are passing through the month of Ramadan what our objective is, why Allah has given us this blessed month. Do you know that tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, we'll be keeping the 7th fast? That's 1 week after the 4 weeks of Ramadan that are nearly over. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells in Surah Al-Baqarah that He has given us this blessed month of Ramadan in the purpose for us to attain taqwa, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that we attain God consciousness, so that we become aware of Allah, so we stop doing evil and we do more good. But you may ask yourself, how can we attain this taqwa? Allah tells us right at the beginning of the Holy Quran, when you turn in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah tells us, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِي هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, that this book has been revealed as a guidance for who? For those who have taqwa. Now you may ask yourself once again, what is the goal of attaining taqwa? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ, that Allah, He loves those who attain taqwa. So our end goal is to attain Allah's pleasure. Our end goal is to keep Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy, and we will enter paradise through that. Now, dear viewers, today we have a special program. We're going to be talking about Islam in the United States. But before we do that, let's go around the table, let's look at our guests and our speakers, and then we'll get straight into our discussion. So if I can turn to my right, as I do every day of the week, we have with us our brother, our presenter, Brother Omar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brother Junaid. I'm really grateful to be, like always, between two of the stars of Huda TV. And we are happy that we're going to have like something different tonight. That we're going to talk about a country that is not predominantly Muslim country. Most of the people are not Muslims. And of course, some of our viewers are not from, like all of them are not from Muslim majority countries. So we're going to get to know how to deal with non-Muslims and what are the traditions and so on of the Muslims over there in Ramadan and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to this, inshallah, Brother Junaid.
Okay, excellent. And with us, our star, Ali Coleman. I'd like to welcome you to the program as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you for joining us again for Here and There. And I'm being humbled by these words. Well, as we said earlier in the week, describing this program Here and There, it's about looking at how different communities and Muslim majority countries observe the month of Ramadan. Earlier this week, we looked at we invited a brother here from Nigeria to talk about Islam and Ramadan in Nigeria. The United States is our focus tonight, and it's unique in that it is not like Nigeria and other countries like Afghanistan, Indonesia, so forth, because it is pluralistic. Mm-hmm. It is a country, the United States is a country of immigrants, with the exception of the Aboriginal people, the Native American or Red Indians. But they also, the Red Indians, are embracing Islam. Mm. Right now, they're struggling against a oil pipeline construction that is threatening to cut across ancestral land. So we're seeing hundreds of years later that Red Indians, Native Americans are still struggling for their rights, even as Muslims. So tonight we're looking at this unique expression of Islam in a non-Muslim country, but it has many people from various parts of the Muslim Ummah that are now there. So we look forward to Brother Abdul Salam sharing with us his experience about Islam in the United States.
Okay, and before we introduce Abdul Salam into the program, I'd like to also remind all the viewers that our phone lines are open, so you can join us live in the studio. Pick up your phones, give us your questions, your comments, your queries. At the same time, we've also opened our Skype account, which is Huda_TV, so please do call us via Skype as well. Now, Let's go to our guest, Abdul Salam. I'd like to give you a warm welcome, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How do you feel being the ambassador for the United States?
I'm the ambassador now. That's a big title. Alhamdulillah, I'm just here to talk about, I was there last summer. For the last Ramadan, actually, I spent it in the States. And it was a good experience, and it was a very interesting experience. And I'm looking forward to speaking about it tonight.
Okay, excellent. Could I ask, just at the top of the program, how old is Islam in the United States?
I like to start with this question. Thank you for asking.
Go ahead, Brother Ali.
Do you want to take this one, Brother Abdul Salam?
I mean, I wasn't born back then. I have to rely on like Wikipedia and my little research. But before the transatlantic slave trade, some people even argue before Columbus. I mean, they have some evidence of this and some remnants of like old masjid and stuff like that. But we definitely know that when they brought the slaves over, they say about 10% of those, or actually from 10 to 30% of the slaves, the black slaves, the transatlantic slave trade, they were Muslim.
Interesting.
They were Muslim themselves, and they were oppressed, and the religion was suppressed, and there was a whole process. But we're sure about that.
Okay.
That there were free peoples from successful organized societies in various parts of Africa enslaved and brought to the United States as Muslims. But also, as you said, we'll link this to our discussion with Nigeria. You remember we talked about the richest human being who ever lived?
This is what I wanted to pick up on.
Yeah, Mansa Musa.
Musa, yeah.
The king of Mali of the 14th century. Well, when he made his legendary Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, he crossed through Cairo, where we are now, and the rulers at the time in Egypt were the Mamluks. They were a warrior class that rose through the ranks and took control for about 125 to 150 years. Before the Ottomans took control. But in any case, when Mansa Musa, with his 60,000 delegation, arrived, they asked him how he came to power, the basis of his great wealth, valued at $400 billion. And he said his elder brother, Bakr, Mansa Bakr, Mansa being the word king in the language. So King Bakr, his elder brother, gave him power for the purpose of exploring the Atlantic Ocean. And he sent ships, hundreds of ships, prior to abdicating power of the Kingdom of Mali, and got reports that came back across the Atlantic that were convincing enough to him that he gave up power and sent 2,000 ships across the Atlantic Ocean, landing, as we said, in the early 14th century. So that's one story about the origins of Islam in the United States. Other accounts are even earlier than that, going to as early as the 9th century. And there's documented evidence, for example, the gold that was found throughout the Americas by the European explorers Cortez and Columbus, when the chemical analysis was done, that it matched the same composition that the Mandinka in Mali used, the linguistic, archaeological evidence. There's all kinds of evidence to document this that is being suppressed. It's being suppressed. So when did Islam arrive in the Americas in general? The official accounts by the governments is not going to, they're going to say the first masjid was in 1924 in the state of Iowa. But the suppressed history, the alternate history that is probably more accurate, that doesn't support this idea of the supremacy of European civilization, says that it was much, much more earlier.
If you go as far back as the 9th century, that's a good 600-700 years ago.
Right.
Very nice. Okay. So is it also fair to say that, building on what you said, that West Africa, at that time, at the beginning of the slave trade, they were predominantly Muslims?
Right. So this, again, brings us back to what we were saying. So in other words, Islam arrived to the Americas in two waves.
Yeah.
The first wave was before the Europeans arrived, and secondly, as enslaved human beings. Now, he's right. Abdul Salam, according to what we have from the Islamic scholars who study this, like Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Quick, he's one of the leading researchers in this. He's written books. He has a lecture series on YouTube. Wow. In fact, he has worked for Huda TV previously. He says that as much as 30% arrived as Muslims, and that's excluding those who arrived voluntarily, established peaceful relations with the Red Indians. And we even have British explorers like Sir Francis Drake in the prior to the arrival, the establishment of the British, that there were Muslim communities of black African Muslims that he encountered in the Americas.
Okay, very interesting.
Yes.
So it's not, our history books don't go as far back as 1924, like you said. Some will have us to believe.
Yeah. So we can choose if we want to go with the official government narrative, or the narrative that has much more archaeological and historic grounding.
Okay, excellent. Abdulsalam, I want to move forward a little bit and look at Ramadan and look at Muslims in the States now. If you give us a breakdown of the United States, east, west, north, south, some of us are very ignorant of the mapping of the states. Where would you say are predominantly Muslims? Where are they based?
Well, we just had some recent history in Hamtramck, Detroit. Okay, I think in 2013, the majority of this town, they're Muslim. And this is the first time that's documented. You know, it's probably happened before. You never know, right? But right now, today, the majority of this town, they are Muslim. So that is the center. I haven't been there. I remember as a child, I used to travel to Detroit sometimes and visit, Muslim friends. But I haven't been there in recent days. So I would like to see what's going on there personally. But yeah, so that is the concentration, where even like the seats that are on like the city council, majority Muslim as well.
Okay.
So there's some serious things going on there, mashallah, man. And I'm looking forward to, inshallah, taking a trip there, inshallah. But, there are Muslims spread out all throughout the United States. And especially, in the major cities, not so much, if you look at America, you have the West Coast, the East Coast, the Midwest. Then you have that Middle America section where you'll probably find less Muslims and people who are, they're less exposed to, just culture, be it races of people and everything. But you'll probably find most of the Muslim concentration in the big cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very nice. Do you know what kind of percentage, what's the makeup of Muslims in the United States?
It depends on who you ask. The sources vary depending on government sources or Islamic organizations, institutions. It can be as high as 10%, and by the government saying it's as low as 1.5%. Okay. So take your pick. But in any case, the majority of the Muslims that we now have are those who have immigrated from Muslim majority countries, with the exception of brothers like Abdulsalam and myself and many others who are embracing Islam, the Shahadas.
Okay. And what about the breakdown? If we look at the Muslims in the United States, what would you say most of them are from the Arab background, Asian background? What's the breakdown?
That's a good question. I know, like he said, like myself, I was born Muslim, but my mother and father, they converted to Islam. So like 25% of them, or of us, of them, right? Of us, actually are African American Muslims,
okay,
who have converted to Islam. And then the rest of the 75, they are immigrants. Now, I don't know what the breakup is. I mean, when you go there, at least, I lived in the Los Angeles area and the California area, and it's really, you see Muslims from everywhere, from the Arab world, from Pakistan, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from everywhere. And that's the beauty of it, really. And we could talk about that a little later when you get into Ramadan and Eid. It's really a wonderful experience because of the culture mix there. But I don't know what is the majority after.
Yeah. I mean, we know that most are are immigrants, but the exact ethnic breakdown, we can't really say. But I do have a question for you, Abdulsalam, because you are unique among the African American Muslims in that, like myself and the other brothers that I know here, we took Shahada. We were raised in either a-religious families or Christian families, but you were raised as a Muslim.
Yes.
And that makes you a second, is it correct, a second generation?
I guess so, yeah.
My question to you is, as a child, it's about your childhood growing up as a Muslim. There can be pressures that we read about now in papers against Muslim children. Being picked on, they're not celebrating Christmas and Easter. Can you talk about that experience growing up?
Yeah, we were strange to the people in our neighborhood, because I mean, we sometimes would wear the hats and the, and they would like, call us Africans. These are African people. You guys are crazy. They would, they would really pick on us.
This is in Los Angeles.
No, this was in Chicago.
Okay.
Because I grew up, I'm from Chicago. So Los Angeles was more, when we moved there, I mean, I moved like to Hollywood and everyone's doing all this stuff. So it was more, people were more open-minded on the West Coast. But in the Midwest, it's very segregated. And at least it was when I was there. And I left in like the late 80s. And very segregated and not so open-minded. Okay. So even at grandmom's house, they're like, wondering why you're not eating pork. They're like, it ain't gonna kill you, baby. Actually, it will. But yeah, so we did have a little bit. I mean, people were just treated us strangely in the neighborhood and stuff like that. But the beauty of it is I had a lot of brothers and sisters, and there was a lot of us. So we were like our own friends. And we had like, sprinkles of friends here and there. And people would come to our home and visit, and it was nice. But no, we were different. And you have to keep in mind that Islam wasn't as popular as it is today. And I remember my mom saying, may Allah bless her, she passed away like 20 years ago, may Allah bless her with Jannah. Ameen. But I remember her saying that, she said, Islam is going to reach everybody. They're going to know what Islam is, And but then it wasn't popular. Islam wasn't, they didn't even know what this was. I mean, the Nation of Islam was more popular than regular al-Islam, so it wasn't very popular. You very rarely would hear about it on the news unless it was some foreign affairs, And it didn't have this negative stigmatism at all, as much as it is today. So it was interesting, but it was not as popular, I mean, it was years before 9/11 and before it took the main stage,
I want to, if I can, turn to you, Brother Junaid, and Omar. I mean, do you have friends that you've grown up with from Britain or from Pakistan or from Egypt or whatever, any Muslim country who have gone to the United States and shared their experiences? Here at Huda TV, we've had colleagues to leave Egypt and go to study in the United States and to Britain. What kinds of things do they say about their life as Muslims in the United States?
You want to go first, Omar?
You can go, because I lived the most of my life, or all of it, in Egypt. So I'm not going to be familiar with this.
I don't know, there's a mixture of reactions. We had one of our own directors, Huda Afifi, who works there, who's gone to the UK and he's doing his studies there. But there's a mixture of reactions, and based on his experience, he spent some years in the US and he's spending some time in the UK. And he has mixed reactions. He says the US is very much it's more liberal in the sense that you could do whatever you want and no one's going to catch you, no one's going to pick up on it. I was going to say the UK is a little bit more conservative in that, so that it's not as free. You're not able to do as much as you can in the US. He said that has pros and cons to that, and he said the cons of that in the States is the fact that if you're, as a Muslim, if you don't take care of your religion, you could very easily just lose all of your religion and your children at the same time. But he said in the UK, it's a little bit different than that, because there are Muslims there and it's a bit more conservative, so you're forced to actually hold on to your religion a little bit more. So that was one of the differences that he
based on your conversations with him and others, would you say that the Muslim communities, comparing the Muslim communities in the UK and the US, are they more tightly knit in the UK than in the US? Do you have a sense of that? Or Abdul Salam, you can speak to that as well.
On the West Coast, nowadays we are coming together because there are some pressures, from society, and you have all this Islamic phobia stuff happening. So in the just recent years, the last couple of years, the community, they are coming together, but it is on the West Coast, it's very loose. I mean, like the brother said, you can lose it. I mean, it's not like you have a strong community going until it comes to Ramadan. When we get into Ramadan, mashallah, it's beautiful. But I mean, it's kind of weak. I mean, astaghfirullah, it is. I mean, there's not a lot of dawah going on. There's not a strong teaching and learning going on there. So yeah, there's some issues there.
I think also, Abdul Salam, one of the reasons for that probably is the breakup. The different, like we were talking about before, in the UK, majority of the Muslims are actually from the sub-Asian continent. So you've got Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladesh, and they're very conservative. So if you end up going to a community where you're living amongst Pakistanis or Indians, you're going to be forced to become slightly conservative in your views and in your behavior. Whereas I think maybe in the States, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have more, I think probably more Arabs, or probably a different breakup or makeup of Muslims.
I'm not entirely sure myself, because I was not a Muslim in the United States. It wasn't until I came to Egypt that I embraced Islam, at least the second time around. I took Shahada twice. The first time I took Shahada about 20 years ago, and I fell away from Islam after 6 months because the community I was with was not really serious about following the Sunnah. It was a group of Sufis, and they were more interested in magic and zikr and this kind of thing. So I fell away from it. I didn't feel that it was the kind of Islam I had witnessed up close and personal in Saudi Arabia, where I went as a soldier. You know, the majority, as we're saying, the majority of those who are leading Muslim communities, I wonder, I don't have a sense of what the majority, like all of the masjids, the Islamic centers, are they being led by native Americans or expatriates from Muslim majority countries?
Now, I can really speak and talk about the coasts and the different areas. I could speak a lot about the West Coast and what's happening in California, what's happening in Los Angeles. I could speak, especially Los Angeles. I can break it down for you. But as far as what's happening in other places, I'm not sure. Okay, so like in Los Angeles, you'll probably find the strongest dawah organization is going to be the Tablighi Jama, the Jamaat al-Tabligh. Okay, and I have people not familiar with them. They're a special kind of, I don't want to call them sect or something like that. They have their kind of own way of doing things. The positive thing about them is they do a lot of dawah, but they do it for themselves. So if you hang out with those brothers from like Pakistan and India, they are going to have a lot of stuff going on, but it's going to be kind of private to themselves. Then you have like the Arabs, you know, and other areas, and they own a lot of businesses, like in, you know, Westwood by the beach.
Can I ask you just to hold your thought? We've got a phone call coming from Nigeria, so let's take this. We'll come back, inshallah. We've got Brother Baba from Nigeria. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Barak to all of you.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear. Switch off your TV and speak to me through your phone.
Okay, okay.
Go ahead, brother. Give us your question.
Can you hear me now? Ramadan Mubarak to all of you.
Ramadan Mubarak as well.
Yeah, thank you. You are doing good. I can see you. We are really enjoying your program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you and Huda TV.
Okay, Brother Bob, do you want to ask a particular question?
Yeah, please. I want to ask you a simple question. Like 2 years ago, I was one of your winners, a laptop winner, and I didn't hear from you. And I said, let me just ask. Let me find out what is happening. I sent message and no reply up till now.
Okay, Brother Baba, I think I got the gist of your question. Inshallah, the voice is very low there. But
he's saying that he won a competition. Did you catch that?
Yeah, we played the competition, right?
Yeah, maybe the brothers can get his phone number. Just my humble suggestion. Get his phone number and follow up with him. Okay,
inshallah. Brother Baba, stay online. The team is going to continue talking to you, and hopefully they'll fix the line as well so we can hear you very clearly. But he was talking about the competition.
Yes.
Last year, I think it was, we had a competition where we were giving away, how many was it?
It was Saudi Riyals.
Saudi Riyals. Every day we were giving away 1,000 or something along those lines of Riyals.
I missed that one. I would have called
But this year there's no Riyals.
They'll straighten it out.
Yeah, but going back to the Muslim community in the United States, another thing, before we started the discussion tonight, we were talking, you know, just casually about some of the recent attacks against Muslims. On Friday last week, an attack against teenage girls in hijab on a metro. They were defended by non-Muslims, including an Army veteran of 53 years, who lost his life defending these teenage girls in hijab.
Wow.
The attackers were alleged white supremacists. They attacked them with knives. There were 3 defenders of these sisters. 2 were killed. 1 is in critical condition in the hospital. And what happened in the wake of this is that the Muslim community there, this happened north of California on the West Coast in Oregon State, in Portland. And what happened in the wake of this is that the community of Muslims there, from whatever backgrounds they come from, raised $500,000 to cover funeral expenses and hospital bills for the 3 defenders.
Okay, very nice.
We have about 500 cases of attacks against Muslims this year alone in the United States. And each time we see attacks against Muslims, we have a response just like this by the Muslim community.
It's the same thing that happened after, you know, the banning of Muslims entering to America from certain countries. And we had the reaction, very positive reaction from so many American people. You know, they are having this solidarity with Muslims.
Yes.
As like women who are not Muslims and they're wearing hijab, just for solidarity. And they are chanting for Muslims inside the airports and so on.
Yes.
So it's very important,
Well,
Brother Ali, to emphasize.
I want to ask you, how do you feel like, as in somebody who lives in Egypt and you see these events taking place in the city, how does that make you feel when you see this?
Well, for me, I humbly advise anyone to just don't rush into decisions or judgments, because sometimes we get like energetic and we say, okay, those non-Muslims, they're doing nonsense and so on. Wait and just think in a balanced way, because they are not one basket. You know, they're not just one type of people. There are people who don't understand Islam, they don't know who Muslim people are, and there are other people who understand this and they defend the Muslims, as Brother Ali said, and as what happened on the ground. So we don't want to have a blanket statement. This is my advice.
All right, excellent. Dear viewers, on that note, we're going to move over and watch our report for the evening, and then when we come back, we'll continue talking about not just Islam in the United States, but we want to look at Ramadan. We want to look at what do Americans eat, what do they wear, are their cultural habits, inshallah ta'ala. So watch this report, and then when we come back, we'll get into that. And one more thing, before you go, don't forget, Abdul Salam is a nasheed artist, and he has prepared for us a nasheed. But we would like for someone to call and make the request. And when you make the request, then Abdul Salam will be obliged to give us a nasheed live on air. So think about that. Let's watch this report, and we'll see you all in a few moments.
And in His name we die, here and there.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. الحمد لله حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا كريم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Welcome everyone to this great month. We are right in the beginning now of this blessed month, Ramadan. The month about which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan within which Allah Azza wa Jal revealed His book, the Quran. So the Quran came down during this blessed month. Allah chose of all months this specific month for the revelation of the Quran, the finality of all books that were to be sent down, or that will be to be sent down to humanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose this month, right? So that shows us that this is in fact a chosen month by Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah has placed great reward within all days throughout the year of every single month, that is. But specifically within this month, Allah has placed immense reward, almost not even comparable to any other month. In fact, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us in a hadith that inna lillahi fi ayami dahrikum nafahat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has presents that He gives to people during His days. So throughout the year, Allah has made certain occasions in which there is great reward in worship, where there is great reward in certain forms of devotion, such as the day of Ashura, such as the day, a number of other days that come throughout the years, such as also a few days that a person can fast in the month of Shawwal as well, which are to come right after the month of Ramadan, such as the days of the Hijjah, which are considered some of the most blessed days of the entire year. This particular month, if you notice, it's pretty much jam-packed with reward. Allah has placed reward by fasting, great reward, immense reward. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man sama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbih." whoever fasts the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will erase the sins that he had previously committed, right? So long as he does that, imanan wa ihtisaban, believing in Allah, hoping for the reward of Allah Azza wa Jal. Similarly, the Prophet ﷺ said, Man qama Ramadan, whoever stands the nights of Ramadan in prayer as well, i.e. the Taraweeh prayer. And also the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever stands the night of decree as well, imanan wa ihtisaban, believing in Allah Azza wa Jal and hoping for that reward, Allah will maximize the reward of this person to a degree that Allah will erase all of the sins that he had previously committed. So these are three opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within this month. In addition to that, there are great opportunities other than that as well. In fact, fasting itself is a great opportunity, and that is because the reward of fasting is not even calculable. The Prophet ﷺ told us of this in a hadith Qudsi, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the person leaves his food, his desires for my sake, then the fasting must be for me, and I am the one who rewards for the fast. So the scholars, they took from this and they said, this means that other deeds might be multiplied by Allah from 10 to 700 times, but the reward of fasting is uncalculable. It cannot be calculated. It is a reward which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken up the task himself to allot based on a person's intention, based on the person's attitude throughout the day, based on the person's behavior throughout the day, based on the person's patience, based on the person's beauty in terms of his character, and so on and so forth. So the way a person behaves, how much he lies, how much he doesn't, and so on and so forth, all of these things will either increase or decrease the reward of a person throughout the day. This is that month in which you can get basically a reward which cannot even be calculated, which cannot even be enumerated, which cannot even be numerated. It can't be. You can't place a number to it. This is that month, right? Because this is the month of patience, and the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran that Allah gives reward to those people who are patient, بِغَيْرِ حِسَاب, without any calculations. So if you're fasting and you're being patient within your fast, and if you're actually adopting beautiful patience throughout this particular month, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a reward which cannot even be calculated. That's the beauty of this month that we're in. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ability to benefit from this month. Now, I live in these days, I live in Malaysia, and of course I go to many other places as well, and I've experienced Ramadan actually in a number of different places. And one thing I've noticed that is I guess you can say unique to Malaysia, perhaps out of the countries that I've been in, is that now the fact that Ramadan is a festive occasion is probably everywhere in the world. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, all the Arabian countries. It's probably also in pretty much any community in the world, because we like to eat a lot during the month of Ramadan, even though it's the month to abstain from food. But that's one thing that Muslims do really well during this month. But one of the things that I've noticed over here is that the people gather outside the mosque, the larger mosques at least, throughout the month of Ramadan. And it's, again, a very festive occasion, but it's also an opportunity to get together, to meet people perhaps you haven't met for a long time, which are all beautiful things, which are all meanings that really revive the spirit of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, within which is saying salam to those you know and those you know not, within which is feeding the people who you know and feeding the people you know not. So all of these things are happening at the masjid, and really it's just a very beautiful vibe. The same sort of vibe that you may be feeling in your country, that is the same sort of vibe, if not better, we feel over here. And of course, everybody feels whatever they feel in a way that is better for them. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq to practice, to convey. And jazakumullahu khairan for listening. Remember, this month is a month of benefit. Make sure you make the most of it. The Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith I told earlier on, the Prophet ﷺ said that inna lillahi fi ayami dahrikum lanafahat. Allah has within your days nafahat. He has gifts to grant you. So فَتَعَرَّضُوا لِنَفَحَاتِ رَبِّكُمْ. That's the completion. That since Allah has these gifts that He grants throughout the year, The Prophet said, then go ahead and seek out those gifts of Allah Azza wa Jal. So this is the month of gifts from Allah Azza wa Jal. It is your duty and my duty to go and work towards seeking those gifts and opportunities from Allah Azza wa Jal for increasing our reward. If we fast, we get reward. If we stand up the night of prayer, we get reward. If we stand up the night of Laylatul Qadr, we get reward. If you are very keen in the last 10 nights, you get the reward of having your deeds forgiven as well. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us get through this Ramadan, getting closer to His book, and also having our sins forgiven. Last but not least, Ramadan is the month of Quran. So make sure you benefit from the book of Allah Azza wa Jal as much as possible by reading the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, by listening to lectures about the Quran, by trying to get closer really to the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within His blessed book. Jazakumullahu khairan, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And in His name we die, here and there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear viewers, after watching that short report. And do you know, tomorrow we're going to be entering into the 7th fast. That is a whole week that has gone by. And do you know that the Salaf, our pious predecessors, they would finish reading the whole Quran every 7 days. Some would even finish it every 3 days. But 7 days have gone by. And ask yourself the question and answer it within yourself. How much of the Quran have you read? Have you completed one whole Quran yet? Have you read a juz yet? Ask yourself that question. This is the month of Quran. Now, let's get back to our discussion. Brother Abdul Salam, I want to now focus on Ramadan in the States. So we want to talk about food. We want to talk about cultures and traditions. How easy is it for Muslims in the States to practice their faith, in particular practice it in the month of Ramadan?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. I love being in the States during Ramadan. I'm serious. I almost traveled back this Ramadan. You know, I probably would travel if we weren't in Ramadan because I don't want to lose any fasting days. Wow, I really love it. And especially, I mean, really, if you were going to go to the United States at any time, I recommend you do it during the month of Ramadan when the big shaitan are locked up to it. That's great. Really, it's a really beautiful time. The communities get together. You see really the best of the Muslim communities from all the different neighborhoods. I mean, you go to like the black neighborhoods, you know, you go to the masjid. I mean, they're giving away, you know, just big packages of meat, and they're just cooking in the night, and they're getting it going. They have the lectures going. Then you go to the really expensive neighborhoods, you know, where you got the big Saudi mosque, and, you know, you have that catering all the food, and you got the, you know, hundreds of people gathering. And you see all kinds of different faces in different places. I mean, everyone's mixing and mingling as far as the different races of people, you know what I mean? So it's a really beautiful time. I mean, sometimes it's so much food there. People will just bring food to the masjid and bring more food. You have to go out into the neighborhood and give this food away because you don't want it to spoil. So you're giving it away to non-Muslims. You're bringing plates out for, you know, from the masjid. So it's a really good time. They have lectures going on. And I wish somehow, some way, we could keep this thing going throughout the whole year.
Wow.
If we could, it would really change the face of America. I mean, we have, in some masajid, you have the police chief coming down and breaking his fast with us, even though they're not fasting. He'll come down and he'll, you know, the sheriff will come down into the masjid, and, you know, after we make our salah, then, you know, or after, you know, we break our fast, he'll have dinner with us, and, you know, and speak with us, and, you know, with the community. It's like that, you know.
Very nice.
Yeah, I can't say enough. It's a beautiful time. It's a really beautiful
So
time.
are there also like official invitations to Muslims or Muslim delegations to the White House or something official like this also in America?
I don't know what's going on with this administration. Okay. But I mean, in the previous administration and before that too, I mean, you would see Michelle Obama, I think, with her hijab on in the White House. You would see Hillary Clinton with her hijab on, inviting the Muslims into the White House. And, you know, they're respecting the Muslims and respecting the culture. I'm hopefully we'll see something like that. I haven't seen anything yet, but Ramadan is not over yet.
We still have the chance.
In Egypt, here in Egypt, Brother Omar can testify as well that in the month of Ramadan, the masajid here did become full.
Yeah, sure.
And like you were just saying a few moments ago that in the Fajr prayer, it's like it's a Jummah prayer.
Prayer.
Yeah.
And so is that the same in the States?
Well, okay, you do see more Muslims. Yeah, definitely, you see more and more, but it's not like here. I mean, here you go to Fajr, if you don't bring your prayer rug, you might be just praying on the, like, cement. No, literally, I'm not joking. You know, I bring, every Fajr now, I'm bringing my prayer rug with me because I'm outside praying if I'm late, you know, and, you know. So, but in America, mashallah, it's not, I mean, it's not like that, like where you have to pray outside. But yeah, you see a lot more Muslims in the masjid, mashallah. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like what is going on here? I mean, does shaitan have us in such a clutch? While in, you know, as soon as Ramadan is over, it's like you see it thinning out, you know, and it's a little sad. But during Ramadan, mashallah, I mean, you definitely see more Muslims. You see everybody from, I mean, they're not, you know, whatever madhab, wherever you're from, wherever race you're from, everyone's like, you know, praying foot to foot, shoulder to shoulder. They're eating together and spending a lot of time together. It's really beautiful,
So,
mashallah.
Brother Abdul, do you have like special big mosques in certain, like in your state that you were living in,
Yeah.
that they are famous, that people go to, maybe especially because there are certain imams that they are looking forward to listening to or something like this when you were in the United States?
Yeah, you know, I was there, well, a few years ago, like, oh, actually, wow, that's like 7 or 8 years ago when Mishari Al-Fasi was in Orange County.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a place in Los Angeles. It's not Los Angeles, it's close to Los Angeles. It's maybe like a 45-minute drive. And Mishari was there.
MashaAllah.
And it was a beautiful experience there in the Orange County Masjid. He was finishing the Quran and my friend had invited me there. So that was a great experience. It looked like I was in another country because there were so many people from everywhere. So that was something. In Orange County, they have a very big Islamic community, a lot of big masajids, you know, schools, and it's a really good place. Also, it's a place called Culver City, and the Saudis have built a beautiful masjid, King Fahad Masjid out there. It's a very beautiful masjid to visit for Muslims and non-Muslims, and you do see this happening. So, I mean, it's just, you know, a really great time, yeah.
Okay, Abdul Salam, I have some breaking news for you. I have a request in my ear for you to begin your nasheed. So, are you ready?
Okay, yes, okay. So this is a nasheed that me and my friend was kind of, you know, messing around with. And it's about Ramadan and Eid, okay?
Okay.
So it's, you know the song Lovely Day by Bill Withers? We kind of changed it. So we talk about a lovely day. We're talking about the Eid day, right? So it says...
I'm sorry, maybe you should hand out the chorus to some of
Okay, so I want, when I say lovely day, I want to point to you, and you say lovely day. Lovely day. No, it says, in the days of Ramadan, we're fasting every day. Muslims are reading Quran, trying to find a way. But when I think of Eid, everything is alright with me. When I think of Eid, I think it's gonna be a lovely day, a lovely day. I wake up in the morning and walk to the mosque and pray. Then we glorify Allah, walk back home another way on the day of Eid. Everything is alright with me. On the day of Eid. I think it's gonna be a lovely day, a lovely day. And that's something like this.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, mashallah.
That's what I was just getting warmed up.
Yeah. Yeah, we were thinking about doing something and releasing it on Eid. We did some recording. We'll see how it, you know, if we release
Master
it.
Abdul Salam, I must say you were able to take your voice to a really high pitch. I didn't think you could take it to such a high level.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
So do you recommend like special food or special drinks or something to train the voice?
Well, I should have been, you know, doing that now, you know, because I'm drinking a lot of sugar, which I shouldn't do.
Okay.
And if you want to sing, you shouldn't drink a lot of sugar. Even if you're like, I guess, you know, reciting or whatever. And, you know, milk. You know, so I'm drinking Nescafe with 2 sugars and all that stuff. It's not a good idea, right? And ginger is very good for the voice. It's very good. And also lemon and lime to clean your voice if you have phlegm and stuff like that. Yeah.
Omar, are you considering a career in
Oh
the
yeah, I'm
fields as well?
thinking about that.
Yeah, no, let's do something, man. Let's do something. Inshallah.
Okay, so if we can just take a few moments and look at also now some of the food that is eaten in the States. Brother Ali and Brother Salam, could you tell us about what is predominantly eaten during the month of Ramadan in the States?
Everything. As they say in the South. No, everything halal, man. What I love about the States is that, you know, and what's really happening in the recent, when I went back last summer, they're opening up all these halal restaurants, bro. And you don't know they're halal restaurants. Before they would have like the Pakistani restaurant, the Indonesian restaurant. I'm going to eat some Muslim food. I know it's like Indian food or something like that. And it's a halal restaurant. Now, no. These pizza places, these burger places, and they're like, I mean, they got this place called the Halal Guys, you know what I mean? And they're opening up, you know, franchises all throughout California. And I mean, you would go into some restaurants, I mean, they haven't, I mean, it's just, you know, so all kinds of food now. And not only Muslims are starting to eat at these places, but you find it, you know, it's a beautiful atmosphere. They have all kinds of food. So you have a lot of non-Muslims, you know, they're coming there and they're eating. And it's amazing. And then they find out, oh, this is halal food? Oh, this halal food is pretty good, you know? So yeah, it's all kinds of food. Oh, and because you have such mixture of cultures there, you get to experience, especially on Eid, like you could go to the different, you know, barbecues and the Indonesian.
You get to have the Pakistani biryani.
Yeah, yeah, I've had it, brother. I've had it. It's beautiful. Yeah, the biryani. I mean, you really get to experience all different kinds of cultures. There's something really special about America. That, you know, you get to experience different cultures, and the people who are open-minded. It's a really beautiful experience, you know, with Muslims and non-Muslims.
So when it comes like to culture and Brother Abu Salam, I would like to know, like, first time non-Muslims know that you're fasting and the nature of your fasting, that you're not drinking for a long time.
Yeah.
So what is the reaction? What questions do they ask?
Well, I mean, some of them think, oh, a whole month? How can you drink and not drink for a whole month? You know what I mean? When you die, it's like, no, it's not the whole month. It's just during the daytime. And then, you know, I find that, you know, a lot of people respect Islam. When you have your co-workers, your supervisors, and I find they really respect Islam. It's, you know, people might think that the people in America hate Islam, and it's not true. I mean, they respect this discipline. I mean, I used to work at different places. They know that you can't lie to them. They know that you are not supposed to steal from them. They know that you're supposed, one of my supervisors said, well, your work is supposed to be worship, right? I was like, oh, he knows, you know? Yeah, I mean, so once they really find out what Islam is about, I find a lot of respect. They know that the women, they know that they're supposed to be respected. And once they get past these stigmatisms that really are not convincing anybody, not too many people, at least the people who are truth seekers, I mean, they're non-Muslims, they respect it. They respect Islam. They, you know, the people on the street, they're like, you know, they watch you. I remember during daylight savings time, I was working in a place for a few years, you know, so I got to know the people in the office. But daylight savings time, the salat time changes. So, you know, the noon salat rolls around, they're like looking at me, they're looking at their watch, like, and they ask me, don't you have something to do right now? Aren't you forgetting something? Because they know that every day at this time, you go make salat.
Okay.
And they like it. They actually like the respect, the honor that you have something about yourself, that you are committed to something that's very positive. And you could see the people really respect it, you know. Okay,
excellent. Our last question for the evening, Brother Ali, if I could turn to you, do you also share the same sentiments of, you know, the fact that in America now, non-Muslims are respecting Islam and are welcoming Islam?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting time, as we were discussing, that you have both extremes surging. You have, now that Donald Trump is the U.S. president, you have certain elements in U.S. society who feel emboldened to act against Muslims and Islam. So we see an increase in attacks like the one we just described in Portland, Oregon. But at the same time, you have people who were defending them, who stood up without being Muslims just because it was the right thing to do. And there are shahadas that are coming along with those people who are sympathizing and supporting Muslims. And we also see church organizations across the United States going and extending invitations to Muslim communities, inviting them in the church, in the synagogue, in the case of Jews, to have iftars with them. In the case of arson attacks against masjids, the same thing. Christians and Jews and Hindus are saying you can come make your salats here in our building while you build your new one with the money that we helped raise for you to construct it. And so there's lots of support. One disappointing thing is that this, and it's not a surprise, we expected this kind of thing to come from the presidency of Donald Trump. For the first time in decades, the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, has canceled the iftar meal with Muslims. Okay. Every year, the Secretary of State, certain government officials invite Muslims for an iftar. Secretary of State has canceled it. It is still a big question mark whether or not Donald Trump will cancel it. So we're waiting to see if he's going to cancel or not. But if he does, it will be the first time in many presidencies.
Okay.
Obama before him, Bush before him, Clinton, all invited Muslims for iftars. It's not sure whether or not Trump will do that.
Okay, Brother Ali, we're going to have to stop you there. We have come to the end of the program, and I want to thank everybody. Omar, Ali, thank you very much for coming to the show. Also, Abdul Salam, thank you very much for coming. And not just that, you're hearing your beautiful nasheed. What's it called again? Ganabi? What was the name of the
That
nasheed?
was a lovely day. That was like a cover from Bill Withers. We just changed the message, you know.
All right, cool. Thank you very much for that. Dear viewers, we've come to the end of our program here, and subhanAllah, what a beautiful discussion. We looked at Muslims in America. We also had a look at the different cultures and traditions of Muslims inside of Ramadan, inside of the United States. Now, let's not forget, I want to pick up on one of the habits that was mentioned about the Muslims in the United States, and that is the habit of giving. We know that in the month of Ramadan, we are meant to be giving in charity. We're meant to be extending our hands to those that are needy. Just look around yourselves. I've seen on social media, Muslims, mashallah, packing food in bags, going around to the homeless, going to the orphans, going to the needy, going to all sorts of people in society that don't have the privileges that we may have. So let's try to be more giving. Let's try to extend our hands out to the community at large. Dear viewers, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you hopefully on our next episode. So until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah, we are born, in His name we live, and in His name we die. Here and there, our souls prostrate to their Creator with humbleness and piety, and creatures do dhikr all the time. Here and there, humans circumambulate the Kaaba while migrating birds stretch forth their wings, finding their way by Allah's mercy. Here and there, our Prophet advised us to travel, seeking knowledge, while exploring Allah's miraculous creations. Here and